All right, we're recording. Go.
Hello, listeners, and welcome back to the B Word Unpacked with GOODSTOCK Consulting. This is the fourth of our COVID-19 episodes. If you haven't already, check out our previous episodes, the first of which provides a deep dive into all of the facts about the pandemic. The second, a look into the life of a Black woman living in New York City, navigating being sick, getting tested for the virus, taking care of her elderly mother, all while self-quarantining. And then the third explores this newfound role of teacher and doggone administrator that many of us find ourselves in while homeschooling our children.
Yeah, and depending on where you are in the country right now, at this point, you're probably from 4 to 8 weeks into this new normal of self-quarantining during this global pandemic, or potentially starting the process of reintegration. Shout out to everyone who's had the opportunity to get back out into the world. And what I know to be true is that this mess is hard, y'all. This sucks. Right. So we thought that we'd not only share some of our respective challenges and struggles during this surreal season, but that it would be valuable to bring on a mental health practitioner who can answer some of our questions and help put things into perspective.
All right. And y'all know we always like to do this thing where we jump into a quick lightning round. So we know that there's been opportunities to engage with folks in ways that we kind of occupy our own time. We've seen the TikTok videos and those kind of things, right? So ladies, what have you been doing in this downtime of self-quarantining and this pandemic to like take your mind off things? So I'll kick it off. For one, I've taken up this new hobby of I'm now a dog groomer. Matter of fact, as you can see, this is my beautiful work. I'm available. Y'all, I gapped him up, and I have a new appreciation for dog groomers because they don't stay still. Okay, so it was art. I've also taken up playing the guitar. I bought a guitar probably in January, and it's been on display in my house. Figured I would start teaching myself how to play, so that's been beautiful in a non-beautiful way.
Okay. So I'm beautiful like that dog. Yeah.
First of all, look at the Mona Lisa.
Okay.
You look at the Mona Lisa, and then you look at this, and you tell me that's not.
It is subjective, friend. It is subjective.
Everything. First of all, Emily, I'm loving your countriness right now because I never heard guitar pronounced guitar. And it just makes the instrument just sound that much more like compelling. I'm about to play my guitar.
I thought that was you just mentioned it. Now I realize that is wrong.
I love it. No, I love it.
Okay, how do you say it, Kelly?
For me, real talk, being outside and being active has what's allowed me to keep my sanity during this period. We pretty much have the same routine. We get up super early. I throw some clothes on Max. I put my workout clothes on, and then I'm like, okay, bud, you want to go for a race? And then he thinks we're racing, which is great, which means he's going super fast. And then I'm jogging behind him. And I am now up to 4 miles. I can jog 4 miles uninterrupted, which for me is like huge progress.
Yes.
So yeah, I'm proud of that accomplishment. So COVID gave me the ability to run longer distances than I ever was able to. And during those rainy days, I have resurrected, y'all know I'm old school. I'm like the anti-social media Luddite of the group, but I've resurrected my Billy Blanks Tybo DVDs. I don't know if you're familiar with Tybo. Is that
like vintage?
Yeah, that's pretty vintage. But I've been doing those Tybo videos on rainy days, and I love it. And I get my full sweat on, and then my son's in the corner like doing it with me too. So just moving my body and staying active has been a must for me.
Right. That's good.
I really like that about Kelly. You have been on this whole new fitness journey that has been like remarkable, like night and day. It's been amazing. Right. In fact, the next time I get to see you, please touch me. Hopefully by osmosis or something, I get a little bit of it. But I ain't doing none of that. I just started back on the treadmill because I thought our crazy ass president, he's probably going to open up this country soon. Yeah. So I need at least a 2-week head start because this quarantine 15 is real. And mama going to need to look like herself when outside opens back up.
Indeed.
So, yep. So thank you, friend. keep holding me accountable and talking about this journey because I've been enjoying that.
I will.
Yes. On the weekends, though, I'm enjoying a lot of podcasts and audiobooks and even Netflix. I don't usually have a whole lot of time to just sit and watch TV, so this has been pretty nice.
What you watching on Netflix?
So Netflix, so I did watch Black AF.
Okay.
Same.
That's another conversation.
Did you watch Tiger King?
I did watch Tiger King. I mean, everyone watched Tiger King, right? And such foolery. Binged it. I also watched Gentified. It's about this Mexican American family in Los Angeles, and it is so good. And half of it is in Spanish, and so literally my dream last night was like 80% in Spanish. That's what's up, right? But I feel like I'm only retaining like the inappropriate words. But nonetheless, I'm enjoying that. Right. But listening and learning from other people really helps my brain to slow down. So that's why I like listening to books and listening to podcasts. Y'all know I have my 2 kids, 8 and 5-year-olds, and I have a full-time job outside of GOODSTOCK. So my weekdays are pretty slammed. Like we start at 8. Yeah, we end about 4 or 5, and after that, it's time for a cocktail. So that's all Mama got. Right. But honestly, now more than ever, guys, I recognize and appreciate my many, many blessings. I mean, a crisis will do that for you. There are also so many new stressors and challenges. We hope that this episode, that you, our faithful listeners, you guys will recognize that you are not alone in this. We are all struggling, and there are ways that we can cope. So let's unpack our mental health and sanity.
Let's do it. So listeners, it's my pleasure to introduce you to Tenelle Jones, licensed marriage and family therapist and licensed addiction counselor. I have known Tenelle for 4+ years now. We first became friends through Dewana, who's Tenelle's bestie, and then who became my work wife. And so there have been moments when I think Tenelle almost questioned if I was trying to steal her bestie. I was with her bestie. But since that time through Dewana, you know, we've had countless opportunities to create memories. We've been to happy hour together. We've celebrated each other's birthdays. We have chilled at the beach. We are in a book club together. So lots of time together. And listeners, I want y'all to know that at each and every one of these situations, Tenelle was rocking a serious heel. Okay, I mean a serious heel. This thing don't play. Even at the beach, she had on wedges. I absolutely love her swag.
Consistency.
And so without further ado, Tenelle, I'm kicking it over to you. Tell our listeners a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do, and why you do what you do.
Great. Yes, thanks. Okay, so I'm originally from Spartanburg, South Carolina. Yes. Yes.
I did not know that.
I am. Yes, I grew up in Park Hill, so I'm familiar with Brandy Hilton, Ebony's sister. I remember seeing Ebony when she was little.
No, for a second, y'all. Honestly, I didn't even know. Y'all didn't even tell me that.
I didn't know.
Park Hills come through. I think you go to Park Hill.
I went to Park Hills Elementary for 6th grade, and then of course Carver Junior High and Spartanburg High Schools, which is the best. Yes.
Somebody look
at home, girl.
Look us up. Okay, come through. Go ahead.
Yes. So I came to Charleston because I wanted to go to Charleston Southern University, and I just stayed. So I've been here longer than I have been in Spartanburg. Okay. And so I tell the story all the time. When I was 5, I already knew what I wanted to do, which was be a counselor. And the reason I wanted to do that, I credit Sesame Street because it was just important for me to know that people knew their worth in this world, and the best way for me to do that is through counseling. And so you know, a lot of times people go to counseling because they're like being told what's wrong with them or they want to find out. That's not my style. I'm always trying to help people see like the many strengths that they have and the gifts, and that their life is worth fighting for. So I've been able to do that for 23 years in various ways. I do I work for MUSC right now at the National Crime Victims Research and Treatment Center, working with a lot of people who've experienced some type of trauma or crime. And then the other part of that I do, I work as a health educator for Empower program, teaching teens how to engage in positive sexual health relationships and communication. So I enjoy doing that. And I'm the board chair for People Against Rape. And I do private consulting on self-care, trauma-informed, traumatic bereavement. I'm a family system person, so I love helping organizations become well. And with that, everybody's preaching self-care, but they don't, like even companies, but they don't really teach it for employees. It's like, you need to take care of yourself, but they don't really create space for them to do that. So I enjoy going in and teaching people about like just changing their perspective on self-care. So that's a little bit about me.
Yeah.
Come through Sesame Street.
I love Sesame Street. Grew up on it.
That's a long resume. Mama got receipts.
Right.
So we are so glad that you're here today because like you just said, this is a very big topic. So often we talk about hashtag self-care or EAP programs through our workspaces, but how to get there and what are even some signs and symptoms that you should be cognizant of are things that we don't really talk about as much. So hopefully we really get into that with this episode. Even thinking about this pandemic from a mental health perspective, beyond loss of life of friends and family, we're really working to keep each other uplifted in prayer because we know so many people are dying every day. Some of the biggest challenges that I think many folks are experiencing include the drastic changes in just the daily schedule and movements, the challenge of staying positive in the face of so much death and devastation and the onslaught of just negative information coming from countless directions and sources, the sources that are supposed to be there to really guide and lead us. So what are your thoughts about how folks can cope with this change and how we can stay positive? And when I say how to stay positive, I mean tangibly, like what are some concrete things that we can do to stay positive in the face of so much negative energy and trauma?
Okay, so I want to try to address each question differently. So the first thing I want to say is that we don't talk about a lot is self-compassion. So self-compassion is a skill that builds courage and resilience in the face of life when it's tough and when there's uncertainty. And so this practice really allows people to see things as they are rather than what you tell yourself they are or they should be. Obviously, if you pay attention to social media and the news, a lot of people are thinking this isn't true or this is the way things should be happening. And so getting caught up in that, oftentimes you start to neglect yourself. So simply put, self-compassion is really just about treating yourself well with as much, if not more loving and kindness as you would a family member or dear friend. The reason why I'm bringing that up first, because we always want to start with yourself first. You can't do anything externally until you deal with yourself. And so the first step to building self-compassion is just to be comfortable with assessing and acknowledging when you are experiencing distress. Learning how to identify what you feel in the moment and what you're thinking in the moment, and most importantly, accepting that without trying to push that away. Again, we are taught that feelings is the most natural thing that we have, and so we're taught to put a it's okay. Like, so Kim, if you got angry, most people will be okay, but if you start to cry, everybody's going to try to shut you down. Let's not talk about our sadness. When really this is a very sad time. People are losing family members, they're losing loved ones, and so if we don't make space to be able to express those emotions, you're doing a disservice to yourself. So that's kind of a little bit about self-compassion. The other part of self-compassion is to do it without judgment. Oh my gosh, there are so many people that are critical of us. You have to be that one person who is not critical of yourself, and learning how to say kind things in all moments of your life, not just when it's easy to do, but also when it's difficult to do. Because chronic harsh self-criticism can actually lead you to feel worthless and cause you to engage in unhelpful behaviors. And that's something that you don't want to do during this time, is to do things that's not helpful. So in this time, some things that you can really say to yourself is just, may I be accepting of myself and my experiences. May I be loving towards myself. May I be wise and understanding. So you can just wake up and just say these things to yourself in the morning, throughout the day, at the end of the day. And the other part is just paying attention to your body, taking care of your body. Just notice how you sit. I know a lot of us probably are working from home and we're on the computer, we're in Zoom meetings. You have to be able to adjust your posture as needed. Yeah, sit up
That's a big
straight.
one.
Yeah. Hold your spine straight, let shoulders relax, your head upright. So being able to do that. Also, allow yourself to adopt a warm and friendly expression with a gentle smile. So even if somebody is saying something and you're really upset, keep that half smile, because guess what? It's going to be helpful versus, looking like, you know, like it's the end of the world, which it could be, but, just
This
kind of
feels like
have a
a whole
smile.
lot more
If
parts now.
I'm
I feel like
going
I have
out
a
with
whole
a smile.
lot of homework right now.
Right.
um, Something else I would like for you to do right now is, if you can, just gently wrap your arms around your shoulders and give yourself a hug of support. Because again, this is difficult time and we all need that, and we can't be around those loved ones that we can hug. So hugging yourself. And so that's kind of self-compassion. So self-compassion, positive self-talk, and self-care, which I'll talk a little bit more about in the show.
Nice.
Those were all fantastic points. So as you know, and some of our viewers know, I'm a medical doctor. And so there's many of us in the medical field that have been having a very difficult time in dealing with this, from a couple different points. One of being, you hear about the things on media, and you go on social media where people are literally complaining and protesting about going out, and I'm mad that I have to stay in my house. And it's like, well, when you go out of your house, when you get sick, you then come and breathe in my face and can potentially kill me. And not only just the healthcare workers, you also have to consider the grocery store workers, the people that's working in Walmart and Target, the ones that are now deemed essential workers. They're not appreciated. They're not paid what they should be paid, but now they're literally keeping the nation afloat. And that being the case, is I'll tell you that, to real life situation, I had a full-fledged panic attack 2 weeks ago, of where I was getting in the shower, getting ready to get to go to work, and I covered the ICU. And this was when the cases were first start rolling out. And I had a realization of, I could die. So when you see me right now sitting with bad posture, kind of leaning on this chair, it's because I am completely physically, emotionally, spiritually drained at this point, where other people have been doing TikTok videos with their families. Literally, I come home and think to myself, okay, let me think back. Did they cough on me? Was this person positive? We don't have a test for them. Could they potentially be? And so how do you cope with this, with battling that portion of, I want to keep myself well, and then getting on to the social media platforms, of where people are complaining about the fact they have to stay at home, of which I understand the financial taxings of it, but at least I know you're safe. And then topped on top of that, the people who are coming up with conspiracy theories and telling you that this is all fake, and it compounds on you of, how do I deal with all these voices in my head that are saying, you're getting set up in this whole process. Black and brown people are dying. You're a healthcare worker. You have all the check boxes for the one that won't see Christmas. How do I keep myself from being broken in that awareness?
Yeah. Okay. So during this time, everybody's or most people are probably gonna have fear, worry, and anxiety. And I want to guide you guys through an exercise that I really implore everybody to be able to do every day. So the first thing you want to be able to do is, again, have that awareness of what it is you're feeling. So you take out a piece of paper, you create 4 lists. One is your fear list. The second is your worry list.
Write this down. Fear list.
Fear list.
Okay.
Your worry list.
Okay.
Your anxiety list, and then your responses. So fear, as you know, is a natural emotion, and it's something that you feel like is immediately threatening you. So in that list, you will write down the things that you feel like are immediately threat to your safety. Like, let's say, like, again, somebody stood in front of you and they just coughed in front of you, or whatever it is. What are your immediate fears? So you kind of just list them out for that moment or that day. Worry is natural as well. It's just kind of, you can worry about anything. We can worry about anything we want to. So worry usually has thoughts that begin with what if. So you would list out all of your what if thoughts.
Okay.
And then, of course, unlike fear and worry, anxiety can take on a life of its own. So anxiety is usually the result of focusing on things that have already happened in the past, or things that may happen in the future.
Right.
And it can be chronic 24 state of arousal, muscle tension, that really can become indiscriminately and ineffectively directed toward everything, where even small problems can feel like crises.
Right.
So that third list, you're going to just write out things that you just feel anxious about and during this time based off of things that you're seeing, hearing, experiencing, reading, doing. So what are things you're worried about in the future? So that's the third list. The fourth list is going to be where you're going to focus on 4 types of responses. The first one is your physical response. So as a result of everything that's going on, what have you noticed in your body? Is your heart pounding more? Is your pulse rapid? Do you notice any numbing or tingling in your body parts? Like what's happening? Are you hunched over more like throughout the day? So kind of pay attention to what's going on in your body. The second part is the emotional effects. So have you been feeling more helplessness, hopelessness, or just a strong desire to escape? So you write down some of those thoughts. And the third part, I said 4, but it's really 3. The behavioral responses to all of this. And we've all been seeing it. Are you increasing your alcohol consumption, drug consumption? Are you doing more avoidance? Are you hyperventilating? Are you having more panic attacks? So being able to write those things down, that awareness in itself is powerful, because again, if you are floating through your day and you don't know what you're thinking and feeling, that can be difficult. So when you write that down, the second part of that is your thinking. So we have emotions, we have thoughts. Your thinking is actually the work that allows you to be able to look at some of these thoughts to say, is this a real thought or a rational thought? Like, let's say if you had a worry that, um, you know, let's say you had a worry that um, somebody's going to come to your door and just maybe cough on you 20 times a day. Is how rational is that? Just kind of being able to think through that. And so that just this exercise again gets it out of your head, because the more these thoughts, these anxious thoughts stay in your mind, the more your mind kind of takes control, and then you don't really know what to do. So that's the importance of getting it out, because you can look at it and say, okay, this is not a real concern, or my mind's just playing with me, and I can be able to let that go.
That blessed me.
Thank you, Tenelle. I got a page full of notes over here,
Right.
y'all. That was powerful, girl.
Bless
I
me.
feel like we could hit pause right now and the episode would be complete.
Listen, I owe you money. I owe you money because that was a whole therapy session for me. I got bullet points of things to do. Yeah.
That was great, Tenelle.
Right.
So I'm gonna shift the discussion a little bit and dive in even further. So Ebony has started to share some of what is concerning her personally during the season, and I want us all to dive into it a little bit more. So each of the 3 of us is going to share a little bit more about what some of our challenges or worries have been over this past, month of self-quarantine. And then Tenelle, I'm going to ask you to unpack some of the themes that you hear from what we've shared. So Kim, why don't you kick us off?
Okay. I think my biggest worry, so it hasn't been social distancing or being quarantined to our homes. I really enjoy being in my house. I'm a homebody.
And it's a beautiful
yeah, and I like decorating, and so I don't mind being here. I think what I worry most about is are my family members, those who may not be listening to, or may not be taking the information as seriously as I hope they do, may not be washing their hands, or just the anxiety of what will come. I don't really like surprises in life, and I feel like we're all on this big roller coaster of life, and we don't know where it ends, what it looks like when we get off. And so that's probably where the most of my anxiety comes from, not knowing what the future will hold, and making sure that my family members, that like Ebony said earlier, I want to make sure that my people are still here come Christmas.
Yep.
And so that's probably my biggest anxiety points. I was trying to discern between, are these anxious moments, are points of worry as you were going through your list. And And I need to think on that a little bit more just for myself. I'm a natural worrier. I worry all the time, but maybe that's anxiety and I just haven't been able to pinpoint it just yet. But yeah, that's what I would say.
Yeah, I think mine is along the same lines in a slightly different depth to it too, because I've already had a family member who has passed away from COVID-19. Rest in peace. But one of the things is, as a medical provider, it's my biggest fear that I will have to take care of a family member that has COVID-19, meaning that I don't want you to be in my ICU on an event. I literally called my sisters and mom the other night when there was a study released out of Greenville that showed that Greenville had the highest traffic in the nation. And I called my mom and my sisters, and the week previously, we had already had a conversation of, I told them I've completed my will. Here it is. I've completed, my life directives. This is what I would want for my situation, because I'm in it, like I'm getting exposed. So I need to be honest and real with myself of that's her real potential. But as soon as I saw that on the news about Greenville, I said, y'all need to get in the car and y'all need to just come and stay with me. And if that means I have to go and sleep in the basement or I have to sleep in a completely different part of the house, I will, to protect y'all. But I am concerned that the system is going to be overran. And I don't want to have to see my sisters, who are my rocks, or my mother, who is my everything, like, to see them in that situation and feel like I haven't done enough to protect them is a lot. And so what I found myself, and I literally told myself the other day, you got to get some sleep. You got to get some rest. It has been nonstop. If I am not at work, I am doing a town hall meeting. I'm doing a Facebook Live virtual meeting. I'm doing calls to congresspersons.
You've been on it, friend.
I've been on it. I mean, the reason being is I know it's to keep my anxiety low, to be able to say I tried, and you know what I mean, to do my part in saying that if I can just get that one person that might not have been listening on Monday, but they listened on Wednesday, that they won't die too, especially in the Black and Brown community that we are both from in Park Hills. Park Hills is a perfect example of the population that is dying from this. And I don't want my people to die. So
that's powerful, Ebony. My responses are aligned with both what you and Kim have been sharing. They kind of fall into kind of three buckets. I mean, the first one is really getting my father to understand the gravity of what is happening and to maintain the social distancing guidelines. I lost my mother going on 3 years ago. And the reality is, we always joke, like, Mama would have loved this season because she loved to stay at home, be in her bed, curled up with a book. So this would have not meant anything to her. But my father is the exact opposite, y'all. I mean, he's 80 and he goes out like 4 or 5 nights a week. And so getting him to stay at home has been just a major challenge. I'm talking, I've had multiple breakdowns, called more aunties, called on the Lord, because I don't want to lose the only parent that I have left. Plus, we know that a lot of our elderly relatives are dealing with not just the physical issues, but then the mental, the dementia issues, the memory loss issues. And so somebody could have been told, well, you need to stay home and wash your hands, but they forget that within like 2 minutes. And so just the stress of that has been weighing on my spirit, and just caused a lot of inner turmoil, because again, I want him safe. So that's kind of my one bucket of, and it's not just my father, it's a lot of elderly relatives who believe I've made it to 70, I've made it to 80. I know how to navigate in this world. And I'm like, but this is one instance when I need you, please, to listen.
For me.
I am saying, I'm like, you always like to brag on, I sent my daughter to NYU. She's public health. I'm like, listen to me. So that's one stressor. The other big bucket for me is really, and this is why this list you talked about, Tenelle, is super helpful, but I want to be super conscious of maintaining a positive home environment. And that gets to be more and more stressful, you know, when you're up on each other. And so like the everyday bickering, or hell, let me keep it real, arguments. Okay, there are arguments in my marriage. Okay, I'm putting it
Kelly,
all out there.
But
But like,
already 4 times.
girl, like the everyday arguments, like when I feel something is escalating, I always now, like, we look at each other and I'm just like, pause. And I'm like, he goes to bed at 8:15. We will resume this conversation at 8:30. But like, I don't want to have like these super explosive moments, because my son, much like all the little ones out there, he remembers everything. Everything. So I just don't want him remembering me in just like moments of ugliness.
Yeah.
But I just don't want that imprinted on him, right? So
Yeah.
the maintaining the home environment is another one that's a stressor. And then the last one for me is just what does the future hold next? You know, some of our listeners might know, some might not, but I left my full-time job in December for what was going to be this mini sabbatical. It's like, oh, I'm taking a sabbatical for 2 months and then I'm going to figure out what's next. And y'all, then a pandemic came and I'm like,
That's
oh
next.
shit. Okay, what's next? You know, so my options look different. And to be real, I just thank God, you know, one, I had the privilege to say, I'm going to take a sabbatical. Not everybody can do that. You know, I have savings, I'm prepared, I'm not worried, my husband supports us. So like the financial stressors, that's not the stressor. But for me, who is a person who like, I like to know what my path is going to be, it feels kind of weird. You know, it feels kind of weird not to be able to say, I'm going to define it, because right now I can't define it. So we've put a lot out there, Tenelle, and I would love for you to unpack some of those.
Huh?
Help us.
Help us.
We are struggling. We are
helping people. So now the one that I really want you to focus in on, because I've heard this from so many people, but really like the challenges around maintaining positive family dynamics during this season.
Yes.
Help us, Tenelle.
Help us stay married through the COVID.
I will do my best. Okay, so there's something that I like to teach people that's called the AHA way of taking care of yourself, and that's AHAA. And so again, want to kind of tap into that awareness. So this, you would just take some time, you and everybody in your house, because if you have a house, you're not the only one going through this. Everybody's going to experience it. So take some time and make a list of all of the demands that are on your time and energy that you have in this new world. And then ask yourself why you may be attached to a certain activity or habit. And what's the worst that could happen if you changed that?
Right.
And so then you would do kind of a really assess and acknowledge what your strengths are and your areas of concerns, and pay attention to, if you have children, your children's strengths and their learning styles, and how you might adjust your home space so that it suits everybody's needs, not just yours. So for couples, because a lot of couples have been struggling with this, I'm getting a lot of marriage and family couple calls. Everybody's working from home, probably, right? Most people are. So when you go to work, your job has a mission statement, a vision statement, and values. It's time to now set that for your home.
Girl, you better preach.
Listen.
So sit down and ask everybody, what is our mission here? We don't know how long we have, but what do we want our mission to be? What's our vision? And what do we value as a family? Okay,
hold on,
so
to now.
everybody gets involved in that conversation.
Yeah, you broke out, Greg. You got to start from the beginning.
Just a little bit.
Okay.
What's our mission? What's our vision?
And what values do you hold dear to you as a family that you want to make sure you're focusing on every day?
What a men at. They need to be the first ones on this.
Listen.
Tag them. Okay, continue.
So in your new work environment, you also then want to make sure you create safe space for everybody to share their emotions. Everybody's not going to have the same emotions. So you might do what you do at work, have meetings throughout the week. you know, kind of like a check-in meeting. How are we doing? How are we doing with our vision? What values did you notice in other people today? So not only just kind of focusing on the negative things, what 3 things did we do well? You can also kind of do this in the morning. Say, okay, what is our intention for today? What are 3 things we want to accomplish? And most importantly, at the end of the day, as a family, you have, whether it's over dinner, whatever pleasurable thing that you enjoy doing, you have another little meeting where you say, okay, what is something that we need to carry with us for the next day? And what can we let go of? Like, we don't need to even bring up anymore. Um,
I'm
so
being I'm being petty right now because I'm thinking you should send a Zoom link.
Everybody in the house got name badge.
Everybody, listen, raise the hand in the chat room if you got something to say. But we need to record this. We can play
I need evidence.
Okay, so play it back and remember
yes.
what you said. Yes.
No.
Right. That's hilarious. And what about, okay, so that's for families. What about for people who are literally in the house by themselves all day long? What about, you know, those people who, I don't know, they were doing long distance relationships and that worked great when you can get together every other weekend. But now that that's been shut off, how do you maintain those types of relationships?
So if you have some type of computer with a camera, I would say be creative. I don't. This is an adult show, right? So figure out ways where you can still be into.
I read all between those lines to now. Damn.
Get a shoulder in there.
Be intimate and connect to each other. Again, find out ways to. So here's the thing. As an individual, you really want to ask yourself, what's important to me? What do I value? And life is really about trying to do those values through activities. So if you used to be able to go somewhere, like I love the beach, I can't go to the beach. However, I will look at pictures of the beach all day long if it makes me feel, or go sit outside, whatever you can that's going to get you close to doing what you value. That really does, if you're able to shift your mindset, that it really does bring a level of peace in your life and acceptance. So with acceptance is, I know that I cannot control a lot of the things that the government is going to do. I can control myself, which is very hard for people to realize. We want to control everything and everybody. But just being able to accept that this is where we are, this is our new way of life, and there's no going back.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So again, concentrate on what's in front of you. Ask for help if you need it within your household, outside of your house. Try to minimize distractions. Just renew your daily purpose as needed. Most importantly, be flexible. So I talk a lot about psychological flexibility, but be flexible in that today is not going to be like tomorrow, and maybe even this moment may be different from the next moment. And have compassion for everyone in the house. Forgive yourself and forgive others. So that's kind of some things that I would encourage people to do during this time. Allow for mistakes. That's like a big one. Like, no, again, this is all new, so you can make a mistake.
Yeah, Tenelle, when you just said acceptance and psychological flexibility, that really just resonated with me. I think in the first 2 weeks of this, I failed to accept that this was going to be the new normal. So I was still like going to my office, and I work in a healthcare center. So I was still like strapping up to go into the office like a half a day, which really I could have done everything I needed to do for those 4 hours at home. I felt like I wasn't as engaged in homeschooling because I thought this is just going to be for a temporary period. I am not trying to relearn all of these new apps and functions that you guys need in order to do your work. And I felt like I was floundering. Like I was just all over the place, just not accepting what was already laid out and what I knew was coming. And then once I accepted it, it felt like a burden was lifted off of my shoulders, because then I really could get back that control that I needed in my life. So once I accepted that this is what it would look like, then I could outline a schedule. Then I could set up a routine. Then I could make sure that the kids were fully plugged in and engaged in homeschooling in a way that felt more proactive than just reactive. I felt like I was letting life happen to me, and my personality type doesn't really agree with that. I need a path. Much like Kelly, we need paths.
Yep.
I also want to challenge, you hear a lot about balance, and I always say, again, if this is an adult show, balance is bullshit. You can't balance
You
everything.
sure can.
Everything does not equal weight.
Say
It
that
does.
again.
So I really focus on teaching people harmony, and harmony is different because it allows you to just be in that moment and give quality over quantity.
I
So
love
even
that.
if you have 10 minutes with your kids, you give them the best 10 minutes because kids really don't know. They're not like, oh, mama only gave me 10 minutes. They're going to know this was the best time I've had with mom.
Yep.
They're not necessarily counting the minutes. So being able to focus on the quality of time you invest in something, not the amount of time, and using those things about your life and know what needs to be in the front and what needs to be put in the back versus everything has to be the same amount of time and the same amount of weight. That's not necessarily true. Also with harmony, you want to find something pleasurable about everything you do, even if it's laundry. I hate doing laundry, but
Oh.
find something pleasurable about everything you do.
Well, what you find pleasurable about it, so I can write.
She's over there sniffing the dryer sheets. She's sniffing the dryer
Listen,
sheets.
Right?
I need to know something positive because
Yes.
I hate laundry. Oh my gosh.
God.
I just buy clothes instead of doing laundry sometimes. So
clothes. I'm just like, you know what? I'll just buy another one because
yes,
it's had enough.
So
yeah,
let it stay on a dry pile.
yeah,
Right? Just leave it on a
Why
pile.
why is it still in the dryer? I know it's in there. I
yeah,
can't chop it out of my dryer, but I do.
yeah. I think for me, I just put all my yellows together. Like, oh, let me see that's how I kind of make laundry fun. Because
Oh, you do that?
yes, all the yellows, all the reds, all the pink. I have enough clothes. It
I
takes
do
me
one
two
load of
weeks to do
clothes.
laundry.
White color, dark brown, everything. If you're a
It's
clothes,
gumbo. It's gumbo.
if you're
Yeah.
a clothes, you go in there at the same time. And I'm just hoping I don't put bleach in there accidentally. But you get them all together.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
That is funny. That is funny. So now you have been such an amazing guest. I feel like I've learned so much. Besides the acceptance, like I just said, and the flexible, the psychological flexibility, but that was a gem that you just hit us with the harmony versus balance. We know that's tough for most women, especially minority women. So giving us that nugget in the quality versus quantity in our time, I think that's something we can use whether we have a family or not, right?
Absolutely.
But before we wrap up, I want to ask you one final question.
Yes.
So from your perspective, and I understand that, one size won't fit all, but what are the top 3 things that people can do to maintain their mental health during this COVID season?
I think I'm going to say the self-care, and self-care is covers a lot. So I'm going to give you kind of there's like 11 points I make with self-care, but I'm going to give you a few. Self-care is individual. So you need to be able to identify what self-care means to you and describe the impact that your current self-care practices have on your personal, social, and professional life. Um, the also throughout your day, again, just be intentional about saying, doing, and being all about those values that are important to you. So that means self-care requires structure. So self-care is individual, it requires structure. I also want to say that self-care requires bravery. So be brave.
Mm.
It's not, self-care should not be a luxury. It's not something where you think about sitting on the beach or sitting cross-legged going home. It is a basic psychological, emotional, physical, and spiritual, intellectual, and vocational need. And throughout life, we will experience lots of pain, and self-care helps us embrace that pain and minimize suffering in a more meaningful way. Um, so during this time when things truly are unpredictable, just take time to ensure that you stay well. Self-care is ethical. And so as professionals, we owe it to ourselves, our family, our coworkers, everybody that we work with to not become damaged by the work that we do. So going to Ebony, I know you're in the trenches a lot. So you owe it to yourself to take care of yourself. So if you're feeling tired, then you need to do and listen what your body's telling you because you can't do anything different if you don't.
Nice.
Self-care.
Nice.
Thank you for that. And I will remember it, and I'll keep all these bullet points in place.
There you go.
You're welcome.
All right, listeners, this has been a pretty weighty episode, but one that I also felt that we just had to record. COVID-19 has turned our world upside down in so many ways. And so we thought it would be helpful to not just talk about keeping our minds right, but give our listeners some practical strategies to do so. Before we wrap up, I want us to end this episode just thinking about what we have a newfound appreciation for and or something that you have learned about yourself through this season of COVID-19. Ebony, why don't you kick us off? You're on mute, girl.
I mute myself because right now this is real life and there's somebody that's doing our landscaping. So the noise. Newfound appreciation. I think I have a newfound appreciation for quiet time. I think most people know we're all really busy. We're always really, really busy. And these last few weeks have been even extra on that mountain of busy, but I've learned to appreciate having just time by myself. And also I've gained a real appreciation for my voice, meaning that I've been given a lot of opportunities to speak these last few days. And I've now thought that if I'm given the chance to speak, I best damn well have something important to say. And so really fine tuning and fine lining, what do I want my message to be? And instead of just saying a lot of stuff, say something that's actually effective and efficient. So just appreciation of my voice.
What about you, Kim?
It's a good one.
Yeah.
I would say gratitude.
Mm-hmm.
I've had a lot of opportunities to just reflect on why COVID. Like from my perspective, everything in life happens for a reason, right? And so this is happening for a reason. And so taking time to really learn what that means, why it's going on, what's happening with you, how can you better after this? Are you being your best self in this? Are you taking advantage of the time that you have? So that's one I've really been appreciating, quality time. So when I'm talking to my parents, am I truly listening to what they're talking about? Am I trying to be a part of their world? Am I talking to my mom about these weird ass reality shows that she loves? Am I trying to tune in too so I know exactly what she's talking about? Teaching my kids new games, family night, game night, like just that kind of stuff that I tend to enjoy with my friends. I'm making sure that I'm enjoying that with my family too.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I'd say mine is similar to a lot of what you and Ebony have shared. I mean, I think what this is teaching me is the importance of presence. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm very much a goal-oriented checklist kind of girl, and having that kind of outlook, I'm always kind of looking at the what's next, right? This is done, check. How do I get to the next thing? So even when I'm doing something, my mind's already planning the next. But I'm really enjoying this homeschool time and just having the opportunity. I know, I'm enjoying it because
that's a strong word. Enjoying it, Kelly.
I'm enjoying it. Like I'm getting into his world. We're making all kinds of crazy artistic things, but I think the reason I'm able to enjoy it is because I'm allowing myself to just do that. And I'm not worried about anything else, but just the fact that we're making a monster out of a cardboard box and he's having a ball. And
like, Kelly, maybe that's why God let you do the sabbatical.
I think so.
This was a message to you of, I need you at home. This is what life is going to look like for you. So
absolutely. I mean, me and my bestie and me and my sister have talked about that quite a bit. Like, honestly, this might not have been the season to work at one of the largest social service agencies doing a job where I would have been stressed and then also try to homeschool and also try to do GOODSTOCK. I mean, I'm a believer in God gives you what he knows you can handle. And maybe this was not my season to do all of that. And so I recognize the blessing in that. And that's also why I don't want to look back at COVID and be kicking myself because I was so hell-bent on finding what was next that I couldn't even appreciate my time with my son and my husband. So, the presence, trying to be there present for Max and present for my husband and present for myself. So, hey.
Mindfulness, right?
Mindfulness. Tenelle, this has been incredible. Before we wrap up, why don't you share with our listeners what COVID-19 has taught you? What are you learning about yourself during the season, or what are you grateful for during the season?
I'm actually grateful that I still am able to do what I'm able to do with people and be a part of their lives through telehealth. So I think that this is needed. I mean, besides the unfortunate loss of everybody, I think the earth needed a break. And so I've been able to kind of accept it as like, this is probably a good thing. The animals need to kind of come back out and the fumes need to stop. And so again, everything about and all the stuff I have to smell when I'm in the community. But I'm also grateful that I do a lot of driving around. So I know my car, which already has over 100,000 miles on it, is like grateful that it gets to stay parked all, all week long.
So cute. Your ride is so cute.
My car is like, yes, thank you. Yes. So thank you, ladies, for having me. I hope this was helpful for everybody.
Absolutely. This has
So now tell our listeners where they can find you online.
Yeah.
So I'm on Facebook as myself and all the social media. If you want to email me to get more information, email me at Tenelle, TENELLEO Jones27@gmail. And I always make my cell phone available because I do really good in self-care. You can call or text me at 843-364-7798.
Now, you know, listen, you know, everybody right now is sending a text message.
Right.
So I'm gonna go ahead and
Mike Jones moment. That was a Mike Jones moment.
Right. So now you just put yourself out there and made your way.
Jesus on that, because
Open.
people gonna take you up on it. So, but she did not say at 1:30 a.m. ma'am.
Right.
At 1:30 a.m.
Not a tender opportunity because she
You
is.
call it business hours, Eastern time, business hours. Okay, respect that. So Noah, thank you for that. That's incredible.
Self-care is definitely brave, and that was a great example of it, Tenelle.
Brave.
Awesome example.
Seriously brave.
So to our listeners, if you want to learn more about who we are and what we do, check us out on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn, GOODSTOCK Consulting, and on Instagram at the B Word Unpacked. Also, let us know if there's a B word that you want us to unpack in future episodes. Until the next time, let's try to stay positive and let's keep unpacking. Stop recording.